بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رحمة الله Umar is here. Sister, what's your name again? What's your name again, sister? Megar and Gulwala. Yes. Fatima's mother? Ah, that's it. Yes, yes, okay. Yes, okay. MashaAllah. Yes, okay. Alhamdulillah.
Farhan's mother-in-law.
Farhan's mother-in-law. Yes, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Okay, here we go. All right. Last weekend I was getting prepared for traveling to outside of Southern California area. Did any of you go to the last weekend seminar? You went? Ah, okay. Did you go?
No.
Did you sign up online? No? Well,
Sign up and listen.
I would encourage you to try to acquire the information. It was a very enlightening seminar. What were your thoughts on it, sister?
Yeah, it's really, that's what I told the sheikh also, that parents need to know about all this.
Mm-hmm.
Only the students, young people.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have no idea what's going on
Right.
in society, in the community, or anything.
Yeah. So it was about liberalism. It was about liberalism. It was a very enlightening discussion about liberalism and discussions, topics that are based upon liberalism, how Islam addresses it, and how perhaps we Muslims are not really, how we are accepting and adopting many of the ideas into how we think, how we believe, our ethics, etc. So it was very, very enlightening. This class, on the other hand, is about history, and the book that I will be uploading for you, if you want a PDF or EPUBs version, is this book right here. All right, that is the book that that book right there, Thomas Jefferson's Quran, Islam and the Founders. Okay, that is the book that I will upload for you. Yes, I'll upload for you on your what do you call it then? I think it's called Canvas, something like that, for you. If you want an EPUBs version, electronic version. If you want the hard version, then you can get it online, I believe from Amazon or A-Books or a used book if you wish. So today we're going to we're going to get introduced to John Locke. Now, John Locke was mentioned in another discussion last weekend with respect to his being a foundation for liberal thought. But that liberal thought, of course, has a history in it by itself, and so we will look at how somewhat of his personal history, if you will, and things that perhaps may have affected how he viewed concept of religion, and to what extent did he, if he did, support the concept of religious toleration. Okay, and what type of toleration did he call for, if he was a person that actually called for it in the first place, and what effect did it have on people after him, since he's considered to be one of the major figures of liberal thought of today. Now, with that being said, I'd like to close the door because it's good to hear the children have fun, but I don't want to hear all get loud. So this class will be consisting of us doing some reading and discussing some of the passages from the author. Is that okay?
Thomas Jefferson's Quran, is it, I was in the other class and Sheikh Kurdi was saying that it's a Qadiani version?
Qadiani version of the Quran?
Yeah.
Or his is a Qadiani version of the Quran?
His Quran is the...
His version of the Quran is a Qadiani? Possibly.
Yeah, that's what he was...
Alright, that's what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Does he have proof of that? From whom? Who said that?
Yeah, he was going through all this and then he said the Quran that is in there as the Thomas Jefferson's Quran is a Qadiani version.
Yeah, that's, I believe it's in the Library of Congress. Yeah, Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. We'll talk about the Qadianis actually, because they actually, do you know Qadiani thought?
No.
What's Qadiani thought?
They don't believe that Prophet Muhammad is the last.
So, Qadianis are, where are they from originally?
Maybe they're a lot from India, maybe Pakistan.
Yes, they're from, during that time period, India. It was before it was split, as we know. So, yes, there is a sect called the Qadianis who take the position that there is a prophet, or the prophecy of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not the end of all prophecies. All right, which of course is disbelief. There is a sect from them called the Ahmadiyya. Now the Ahmadiyya, they are a branch of the Qadiani. They take the position that there was a man named Ghulam Ahmad who was considered to be a prophet of God after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, that's interesting in our time period. I'll tell you why. Recently there was a movie called The Green Book. Alaykum salam. Alaykum salam. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Recently there was a movie called The Green Book. The Green Book won, mashallah, Academy Awards. You heard of this movie called The Green Book? No? Good for you. There's a movie called The Green Book. Alright, it's a movie featuring one particular star, African American. I forgot his name, something Ali. Huh?
Ali Marshallah?
The opposite.
Marshallah.
Mashallah Ali. That's it, yes. That's it. He is Ahmadiyya.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He just won the Oscar.
Yeah, he won the Oscar. So everybody. Alright, yeah, we got a Muslim, yeah! Allahu Akbar! Stop. Let's unpack. Alright, and let's see. Alright, yes, he is Ahmadiyya.
That explains why you got the Oscar.
Allah Musta'an. Anyway, now while we been talking about this, you two came in, you probably, well, what's this guy talking about? Oh, we talk about history of Islam. Yeah. Well, that is because this book right here, Thomas Jefferson's Quran, that's the book that we'll be using from now until, you know, I say we finish and we go to something else, inshallah. I have an EPUB's version. I will upload it for you. If you want a physical copy, then of course you are free to do so. Sister, is it Nigar? Sister Nigar mentioned that in the previous class she was in with Sheikh Ahmed Al-Kurdi, that Thomas Jefferson's Quran, which is in the Library of Congress, is a Qadiani version of the Quran.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Brilliant.
Yes.
I have a question. Is it like, did he just like rewrite the Quran, or does he have like take verses and like talk about them?
We shall see, inshallah, in our journey through this book. We shall see where did he, from what aspect did he benefit, and what does that have to do with the history of Islam in America? That's the bigger question. We'll get there, inshallah. But first, we talk about John Locke. Why John Locke? Because of his influence on the so-called founding fathers or the colonists who came over here. Alrighty?
Is that confirmed? Is it the Quran is the Qadiani version?
Well, I had asked the sister about that. I would suggest we ask Sheikh Ahmed himself, but I do believe he is correct. I would not think he would say something without due diligence. Yeah, definitely. All right, what else we got here? Let's see. Tahseen is here. Brother Mr. Kareem. That's you, right?
Yep.
Cool thing about mashallah. All right. Bye. What's all this here? Yeah, so that anyway, we talked about that briefly, and I was saying that yes, we have Qadiani, and then the branch of that is Ahmadiyya, right? And the Marshana Ali is now, Sister Nigar, about the Green Book itself. Before we go any further, the Green Book supposedly is it was heavily criticized actually, because it's actually the Negro Green Book. That's the original title, which discusses something totally different than what the movie projects. The movie shows a white dude driving a black man around. All right, that's not what it really was about, okay? That's not what the book actually was about. So once again, we see Hollywood flipping things in a manner to suit their whatever they're trying to suit. Anyway, that's off topic a little bit. So now you know. So, oh yeah, one final thing. We Muslims need to stop being so quick to celebrate the so-called victories of Muslims and look at it in the lens of the revelation. So we're going to cheer, alhamdulillah, for example, another person. He's Egyptian, but he has an Arab name. What's his name?
Rami Malik.
Yeah, that one. Rami, yeah?
Malik.
Yeah, Rami Malik. Is he Muslim?
No.
He's not a Muslim. But it sounds like a Muslim name. There's a thing called Egypt. They speak Arabic. It's possible that he could be a Coptic. All right, which he is. Yet we have organizations who are Muslim who are celebrating this. Why are you celebrating this? For what? Because he's Muslim? He ain't Muslim. So what are you celebrating for? Because he Arab? I thought Islam looked beyond that. Food for thought. Food for thought. Look, we gotta get past this this colonial thought that we still have. Stop acting like we being colonized. All right? We keep doing this all the time. We keep yes.
Just a quick comment. When
you can comment more than quick if you wish.
Sorry, no, it's a little off topic.
That's
why.
okay.
But it just came to my mind. Those two women who were elected and they're in the Congress right now.
Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Yes.
Yeah. So again, when they got their seats and they won and everything, so everybody was very quick to celebrate. There we go, Muslim, Palestinian women in Washington now.
Okay.
But what is your take on that? Because I have my own.
What's your take, sister?
No, I want to hear yours.
What's your take, sister?
I think we should not celebrate it.
Why? Astaghfirullah. Why?
That's why I wasn't giving you my take.
Astaghfirullah, sister. Astaghfirullah. They Muslim. We're supposed to support the Muslims and what they do. Alhamdulillah. I mean, what's wrong with you? I mean, I'm sorry, sister, but this really. You agree with that, brother? I ain't trying to cause no problems.
Since I'm married to her, I better agree.
He agrees with me.
You agree?
Yeah, I don't think it's correct.
Astaghfirullah. Why?
You tell me, why not?
You tell me. I'm trying to learn too. Why?
Because they're not upholding, carrying the ideas of Islam.
Are you serious?
Correct.
In what way?
Well, when this LGBT thing comes up, guess who's going to be supporting them?
Who?
These two women. When Ilhan spoke against Israel, she was shot down by her own Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't even speak against what you could speak about as, you and me over here, we can openly talk about it. But because she chose that position, she's not allowed to speak on that anymore. And she got schooled by people in her own party that, hey, you can't be talking like that.
I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, when you mentioned liberalism, like the top one, even though I didn't go, I've been to similar things, but from my understanding is that like we Muslims shouldn't identify with anything other than being Muslim and other than like our Islamic belief. And I know for sure that they do identify with being this whole like liberal movement, feminist movement, and if you actually look deeper into these movements, there's a lot of things that don't cater to our Islamic values, to our Muslim, like our just being a Muslim. So I think that we, like, yes, they are minority in Congress. You could say that's something good, but for me as a Muslim, that's not who I want representing me.
Yes.
Because then I get the short end of the stick, and I have people telling me like, oh, you don't support LGBT? Oh, you're not a feminist? Oh, like, and I don't mind clarifying myself, but it's just like, it just perpetuates this whole stereotype against Muslims again. So
And
that's why I don't want to celebrate them.
Yeah. And then you always put in a bracket, you're either with them or against them.
Is that right?
That's right.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. What kind of students do I have? La ilaha illallah. Now Sister Tahsin is probably going, okay, maybe he doesn't agree with me. First of all, if I didn't agree with you, I would respect I respect people's opinion. I believe that we Muslims should be as civil as possible, even though we're living more and more in an age where people are becoming less civil with regards to disagreement. Okay? Let's see here. Let's see. I'm looking for something I wish to read before I begin, and maybe then you'll maybe then you will understand my position a little bit more. First of all, I want you to do the following thing. Whenever you hear the word Afro-American, remove that, put Muslim. Okay? All right? This speaker said the following. Basically, first of all, talking about politics and economics. And the two, in other words, politics and economics, are almost inseparable, because the politician is depending on some money. Yes, that's what he's depending on. Basically, there are two kinds of power that count in America: economic power and political power, with social power being derived from these two. In order for the Afro-Americans to control their destiny, they must be able to control and affect the decisions which control their destiny: economic, political, and social. This can only be done through organization. Then the name of the organization, listen carefully, will organize the Afro-American community block by block to make the community aware of its power and its potential. We will start immediately a voter registration drive to make every unregistered voter in the Afro-American community an independent voter. We won't organize any black man, separate that, put Muslim man, Muslim woman, to be a Democrat or a Republican, because both of them have sold us out. Both of them have sold us out. Both parties have sold us out. Both parties are racist, and the Democratic Party is more racist than the Republican Party. I can prove it. I ain't gonna kill him. Any questions about that?
Who said that?
Our brother in Islam, Malcolm X, said that. You know when he said it? After Hajj. Not before Hajj. I specifically read that because if you sometimes say that to people, they say, no. That was, yeah, you talking about, when he was with the Nation of Islam. No. This is his speech on the Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU. This was after he did Hajj. in the year 1964. 65, he was assassinated, rahimahullah. All right? You understand my position now?
A little bit.
I do not support, I believe that it is a mistake and it shows our political ignorance that we Muslims just sign up with any party. First of all, there's nowhere in the Constitution where there are only 2 political parties. You can have as many parties as you want. Of course, with the injection of what is called dark money and stuff of this nature, there are millions of dollars from different donors and what have you. It is a little bit more difficult, I suppose. But nevertheless, we Muslims need to stop just buying into the so-called liberal conservative paradigm or democratic republican paradigm, because the reality is that if you look at both of them, some things we agree with on one, some over here we agree. So why don't we just do our own thing? That's what we're supposed to be doing. All right. But unfortunately, there are people who are in organizations and the like who are on the minbar and other places. They are grabbing the microphone. They are encouraging Muslims to give them their money to support things that are very, very unethical with respect to the Islamic ethical system. And some Muslims need to wake up. Really.
And call them out.
Huh?
And call them out.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Muslims need to wake up and call them out. And these people that are on social media saying, for example, yeah, Sheikh, you being, that's just you being harsh, you're being irrelevant, you're speaking about stuff in the past. I'm speaking from the revelation, man. That's what I'm speaking from. All right? There's no, interpretation of certain things being haram and unethical. That's not me giving you interpretation. Allah said it. The Prophet said it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're done. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Okay. But I'm going to tell you something. And I said this many times, I'll keep on saying it. Y'all mark my words, okay? So, inshallah, if you're still alive and Allah has taken my soul and returned me to Him, mark my words on something right now. The way that we're acting right now, we're acting exactly like the Jewish community. The Jews, when they came here, they wound up separating in 2 camps. Those who are Orthodox and those who are secular. And we're doing the exact same thing. The Christians right now are going through this right now. You have those who are, more religiously oriented, etc. And you have those who are secular. And we're doing the exact same thing. Mark my words. We're going to be into 2 major camps. Those who are secular Muslims, if we can even say that, and those who are trying to be orthodox or, traditional, for lack of better words. Mark my words. That's going to happen. I'm not a prophet, but it's a prophecy.
It's happening.
All right?
It's happening.
And then we're going to really see what happens. Hold on to your baseball cap, your beanie cap, your khimars. We're in for a wild ride. It ain't going to be all necessarily fun either. Anywho, let's talk about something else, all right? It's raining outside. We don't want no gloom and doom. Alhamdulillah, all right? And even if it is gloom and doom, never forget Allah Ta'ala is with those who are striving to do what is correct, inshallah ta'ala, all right? Even if we may make mistakes from time to time, so long as we're trying to hold on to what is correct, Allah Ta'ala will be with us. So
and He promises us victory.
That's it. All right, it's okay. The dunya wasn't meant for us to be chilling like this, mashallah. I like that. I told my partners, I said, I want a cave. Every time I read stuff, I say, yo, just give me a cave, man. I want a cave, move there, I see all y'all later. Oh boy. Okay, Bismillah. So let's talk a little bit about our buddy here, John Locke. This is, let me, on here now. We want to read about John Locke here. We covered a lot of this already. I encourage you to review this information. I gave you a summary of sorts from our various lectures. So All right, we have John Locke in the Age of Arabic, CK, his interest in Islam and toleration, 1646 to 71. Amatullah, would you mind reading this passage, please? So first of all, is this appropriate or would you prefer this instead? Let's see. Which one?
No.
The other one?
Yeah. No.
Okay, you got it. You got it. Boom. I hope that you're online. If you're online, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. Alrighty, I hope that you're online and you are also aware of this. Bismillah.
In England, the Age of Arabic, to use G.A. Russell's
Evocative.
phrase, began during John Locke's lifetime as a thinker and a writer, and Locke's education included exposure to Arabic and Islam as well as scholars of Islamic history. A chair in Arabic was established at Oxford University in 1636 when Locke was 4 years old. Underlining this new interest in the language was a combination of theological, diplomatic, and commercial development.
Mm-hmm.
Protestants who wished to study the Hebrew Bible found Arabic also a Semitic language, philologically helpful.
Mm-hmm.
In 1580, Elizabeth I had licensed the Turkey Company, which a decade later became Levant Company to do business in the Ottoman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
More immediate contents resulted from the rise of North African pirates in the Atlantic and Mediterranean from Elizabethan time to mid-18th century. The threat to English shipping necessitated constant attempts at negotiating treaties and ransoming English captives for which Arabic was needed.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. If you will excuse me, I hear that, mashallah, the energy of our future leaders and scholars, inshallah. Mashallah, may Allah bless them. All right, all right, so here we go. First question is from this paragraph right here. We can see that there were some reasons as to why this was called the Age of Arabic, right? That's the first we want to talk about. What prompted the British Empire to now become engaged in learning Arabic? All right, what were the factors? What do you see? What were the factors or things that prompted a desire for the English Empire, to encourage study of Arabic language?
Protestant wanted to read the Hebrew.
Okay, so the first thing you can say is that there was a desire to study the Hebrew Bible. All right, so we have here that. All right, so we have a situation where there was a desire during this time period that we're looking at right now for that society and the Protestants, who were, of course, the dominant religion. You have Christianity and you have Protestant and Catholics, as we talked about before. So Protestantism was the dominant sect of Christianity during that time period. Okay, that being said, there was a desire to have a deeper understanding of the Bible. That was their book. But the Bible was in Hebrew. Okay. All right, well, some things philologically, all right, are difficult or not clear in understanding in Hebrew. So let's learn Arabic then, because Hebrew heavily depends on Arabic. Alrighty? So basically, in order to understand some Hebrew or Hebrew passages or even words, okay, this necessitated a need to learn Arabic. This necessitated a need to learn Arabic. You see that, Tahseen? Or shall I try to make it bigger?
No, it's good. I was looking for the word necessitated.
Okay. All right, so this is very, very important to understand. By the way, if you didn't know this before, or if you heard me say it, I'll say it again. The author here says what? She says, Protestants who wish to study the Hebrew Bible find in Arabic, comma, also a Semitic language. What do you know about anti-Semitism? What's anti-Semitism? The common understanding of anti-Semitism?
Anti-Jews.
Anti-Jew. If you hate the Jews, you anti-Semitic. Okay. Arabic is Semitic language too. So if you're anti-Arab, then you also what? Anti-Semitic. You see that? See that? All right. Semitic refers to a particular people who are able to speak a Semitic language. You are Semitic if you speak a Semitic language. Alrighty? And the Semitic languages amongst them are Hebrew, Arabic, and some East African languages as well. All of that is Semitic. Not just the Jew. Alrighty? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, subhanAllah. So when the media starts talking about there was, may Allah protect us, an attack on the Muslims and the masjid or a sister or a brother, this, that, and the third, they don't call it anti-Semitic, do they? No. They call it something else, right? It might be a hate crime. But even with that, I believe, this is not my personal opinion, there are different levels of a hate crime. The more intense it is, the more likely the authorities are going to look into it. You follow? Yeah. Keep that in mind. Anyway, first reason was a desire to learn more about the Hebrew Bible. Okay. Is there another reason? Economical. Okay, so we had a religious reason. We also had an economic reason why people during this time period, or the British Empire particularly, were interested in learning Arabic. All right, had nothing to do with necessarily learning about Islam per se. Although, of course, during that time period, if you're going to learn Arabic, chances are you're going to be exposed to Islamic literature as well. That was just a reality. Okay, that's very good.
What a point. Even maybe before this time, very similar to today, if you were born even in a village, you have to learn English in order to survive or even be able to have a stepping stone. It's the language of the world. At that time, or maybe previous to this, you had to know Arabic in order to survive or get ahead, because Muslims were far ahead economically, socially, mathematically, biologically. When I say biologically, I mean medicine-wise.
Yes.
If you wanted to treat people, if you were a good person in England and you wanted to know medicine, you would have to learn Arabic. Because all the books, all the treaties, all the research was being done by Muslims. So you couldn't sit back and say, well, I'm not going to learn Arabic.
Yes.
Like today, if you want to learn about molecular science or genetics, and even if you were living in some village, which is fine, you would have to learn English because the research is being done in English.
Indeed.
So Muslims at that time were at the forefront, so you had to learn Arabic. If you wanted to even study that, what's the way to perform surgery? What's the way to treat a wound? What's the way to navigate? So the Arabic was kind of the predominant language at that time.
Yes, that's a very good point, and so then this brings about a very interesting question, which is that, or rather point at a larger level, I suppose, is that depending upon the might or the extent of a particular empire, no doubt part of that is going to mean also learning that particular language of that particular empire, right? And so that's a very interesting point that you made. I appreciate that so much. So it was one more reason why Arabic was needed to be studied. One more reason. We have religious, we have economical. Is there another reason?
Social?
Nah. No one talked to each other in Arabic. Not in England.
Oh, political.
Political, absolutely. In what way?
Negotiating treaties.
That's right. I mean, people were being captured by the North African pirates. You know, the Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, etc. They all spoke Arabic, right? They're being captured by these North African pirates. Piracy, as we talked about before, was pretty common during that time period in the Mediterranean and in that particular area. And so, of course, if you have English people, Englishmen particularly, in the seas with their various goods and the like, being pirated and being held captive, you got to learn that language in order to try to ransom them, get them freed. All right. So we had three major reasons why during that time period we see Arabic being the age of Arabic, if you will. One was religious, another one was economical, the other one being political. Alrighty. And we see from that as well something else, which is that the government at that time period established what is called a chair in Arabic in Oxford University, one of the leading university at that time period. So we see from this as well that the government instituted something within the university to get their agenda pushed forward. All right, something to think about as well. All right, very good. Let's keep going. I am with the law. Continue.
Locke probably first studied Arabic in 1647 at Westminster. His secondary school...
High school.
Oh.
Basically. Secondary school, high school, same thing.
Secondary school where his headmaster emphasized the language, having become convinced at Oxford of its importance. At Christian Church College, Oxford in 1652, while he also studied history, astronomy, and mathematics, Locke probably attended twice weekly Hebrew and Arabic instruction delivered by Dr. Edward
Pocock,
who held the chair in both languages.
Mm-hmm.
While there is no evidence that he ever used the language in his research, it is known that Locke developed close friendships with those who taught and translated Arabic. And by 1660, Dr. Pocock was one of them, a professor he most revered. Locke would later also tutor Pocock's son, also named Edward.
Mm-hmm.
Under his father's supervision, the young Pocock translated
Hay ibn Yaqdhan,
a medieval Arabic philosophical text by Ibn
Tufayl,
a native of
Granada.
Granada.
You know where Granada is? What's Granada? Where?
Spain.
In Spain, yes.
Who served at the court of North African dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
The work known as
Philosophus Auto Detectus
in Latin was an
allegorical
tale whose hero, alone on an island from infancy, demonstrated that his innate power of observation and reason are sufficient and to master all knowledge. The Arabic title in English stresses instead the relationship of protagonist to his mind and soul realization of God.
So what we get from this, very interestingly, is the following: that so John Locke was first exposed to the Semitic languages of Arabic and Hebrew within high school. A quick point I wish to make here is that in England, he didn't go to a faraway land. He learned a foreign language in a land where it wasn't commonly spoken, which in and by itself shows us that it is possible for a person to learn a language like this in a land wherein it is not spoken socially, as Tahsin had assumed. Alrighty? Alright? I'm just making that point for a particular reason. Anyway, nevertheless, so at Oxford, he studied this, right? So John Locke was very much involved in religion. He was an Anglican, very much into Christianity, considered a scholar eventually during his time period. He had, of course, an affinity toward Dr. Edward Pocock, and also his son, developed a huge relationship with them. We see that, again, the idea of student-teacher, if you will, taking place here. But interestingly enough, we get to see from the second paragraph part of how Mr. Locke understood how the mind should be looking, or should look at knowledge. We know that John Locke was amongst those that called to liberalism. The concept amongst the things that the mind of a human being is central to understanding what is truth or not truth, etc. But it seems that perhaps he was influenced of sorts by this particular book, written in initially Arabic and translated into either Latin, yes, translated into Latin, which is very interesting, to be honest with you. We're building up off the character of John Locke. If you're wondering, what are we doing, by the way?
Yeah, I was just Googling who John Locke was.
All right, yeah, all right. We are building up to who this person was with respect to, you know, Islam and the history of Islam in America. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, once again, we find that the idea was about a person having the ability to use observation and reason to understand all knowledge. That is, by the way, one of the key elements of liberalism. So you'll know. There's an emphasis on the mind. Okay, there's an emphasis on the mind. However, we also get to see from this that the Arabic title itself, the idea behind the story in Arabic, wasn't about an emphasis about a person having the sole and only ability to understand something, but also link it to the one who gives that person the knowledge, which was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Tufayl understood that, by the way, all right? So we see here a little bit of a distinction going on here, okay? Alrighty, where am I? You're still reading.
Pocock's Latin translation created a
sensation
in Europe, where it was repeatedly reprinted, influencing many European thinkers, including the English Quaker George Keith. Translated later into English, the text inspired Daniel Defoe's 1917 novel Robinson Crusoe.
You ever read that book, Robinson Crusoe? You ever read it before? You read it before? Yeah, these two read it. You saw why are you shaking your head?
No, I didn't know that it was inspired by that.
Ah, okay. See, yeah, we Muslims, we did some, you know,
phenomenal work.
Yes, we did, but you know, unfortunately, we are ignorant about a lot of things. May Allah give us knowledge. I mean, beneficial knowledge. Yes. By 1721.
By 1721, the impact of the Islamic text would be noted across the Atlantic in Massachusetts, where a Puritan Cotton Mather took time off from the
vilification. That was his hatred and his criticism of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Of the Prophet as Antichrist, to praise this medieval Muslim philosopher's idea that reason and revelation could be reconciled in natural philosophy.
That's very interesting. Yeah, so we get from this is the following. Of course, we see that, you know, Ibn Tufayl's work inspired the great book Robinson Crusoe. We also see that European studies never seem to mention these type of things. Please keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. One of the things about European culture is that it is very, very unjust with respect to where do they get their so-called knowledge and information from. All right? That is a very important principle that we as Muslims should never, ever forget. It's not a conspiracy theory. That is how it is. Okay? That is how it is. And so long as we understand that, we will be able to hopefully look at these things a little bit differently with a more critical eye than beforehand. Second thing that we can appreciate from this is that I mentioned this man, Cotton Mather, beforehand, all right? And I also mentioned that he was within the new colonies in the so-called United States of America. I believe I also mentioned that he, of course, was a hater of Islam and Muslims, Mohammedans, etc., etc. Yet and still, he appreciated and spoke very highly of this particular book, which illustrates what? That revelation and reason work together, unlike John Locke's assertion. Keep that in mind. طيب. Locke
may also have drawn inspiration from empirical philosophy in the essay on human understanding from Pocock's translation, first published in 1671, the very year in which Locke began his essay, which was published in 1690. Indeed, Locke's concept of human...
The essay that is talked about here is the essay on toleration. There'll be further discussion about that later, inshallah. Yes?
Locke's concept of the human mind as a blank slate capable of acquiring all knowledge enough...
Through
empirical observation
is tantalizing,
similar to ideas expressed in the medieval Islamic philosophies and allegory. Even if Locke left no direct evidence of the influence of this work on his thought, also as to Locke's idea on religious toleration, those exemplified by Hay, who refuses to use coercion to rescue others from religious error and accept the existence of others' faith, also bear comparison. But Locke had began to read about toleration directly more than a decade earlier in the work of the English author Henry Stubb.
All right, very good, excellent. Okay, so what we can gain from this, thank you very much, is the fact that that part of Locke's philosophy, if you will, was influenced by this particular book. Now, in Islamic thought, of course, there is major emphasis on reason, of course, being dictated by the revelation, not the other way around. Alrighty. However, John Locke, of course, part of the reason why he perhaps may have looked at things a little differently was because of his bigotry, of course, toward Islam, which doesn't surprise me. All right, who's Henry Stubb? That's the next question. Who's Henry Stubb? Tahseen. Who's Henry Stubb? Who is that? Now remember now, previous paragraph shows us that John Locke was influenced by Ibn Tufayl. Translate Ibn Tufayl.
The book was Hay?
The name of the book was called Hay Ibn Yaqdhan. Alright, Hay Ibn Yaqdhan. Hay means alive, from Al-Hay. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-Hayyul Qayyum. Right? Ibn Yaqdhan. Yaqdhan means awakenness. Alright? Hay Ibn Yaqdhan. Okay? So Yaqdhan, Yaqdhan refers to being awake. Alrighty? The original book in Arabic is Ibn Tufayl, rahimahullah, called, may Allah have mercy on him, called Hay Ibn Yaqdhan. It was translated from Arabic to Latin, okay, and then eventually to English, This was one of the things that influenced John Locke's philosophy, if you will, okay. Also, Henry Stubb. Now we're going to read about Henry Stubb, because Henry Stubb was interesting in the sense of talking about toleration. All right, toleration. Now, as we're reading this, try to think about as well how, in what matter did Locke possibly agreed with Stubb, and how he didn't agree with Stubb. That's one of the main, very important questions that as we are moving along in this text. We will see first Henry Stubb's understanding about certain things. I'll let you, as you're reading, you can figure it out, inshallah. And how did Locke perhaps possibly agree with him or disagree with him? And to what extent? Okay? Alrighty. You ready, Shaykha? Inshallah? Henry Stubb.
Henry Stubb, Toleration and a Defense of Islam, 1659 to 71. Locke's first documented interest in religion toleration was prompted by a 1659 treatise by Henry Stubb, a fellow student of Arabic at Westminster and Christ Church, Oxford.
Ah, so Henry Stubb also learned Arabic as well. Interesting. All right. Again, that's the age of Arabic, right? Okay. In Oxford, go ahead. Yes.
Stubb's An Essay in Defense of the Good Old Cause, or a discourse concerning the rise and extent of the power of the civil magistrate.
The civil magistrate is, who do you think the civil magistrate, what's he referring to there? He's referring to the king. All right. Civil magistrate is referring to the king or the government. All right. In reference
to spiritual affairs, sought to define the proper limit of political authority regarding religion and outlined a history of religious toleration.
I'll stop there for a minute. So thank you. Henry Stubb's book covers two things. What are they again? Huh? The scope of, talk to me.
Religious toleration.
Two things. Outlining the idea of religious toleration, number one. And number two, what? The scope of really how a government should work with religion. All right? Two things to keep in mind. Again, this is one of the treatises that John Locke was influenced by. Sister Tahsin. After you finish writing.
Yeah. Religious toleration. After reading the book, Locke wrote the author full of praise for the strength and vigor of his style, suggesting that Stubb expand his history of toleration to include Holland, France, and Poland. As to Stubb's belief that government authority should not meddle in religion and that individual faith was a matter better left between the believer and God, Locke, while not explicitly disagreeing, did not share these ideas at the time. He did, however, warn Stubb that toleration for Catholics was a mistake, believing their loyalty to the Pope made their civil allegiance suspect. The disagreement did not prevent him from signing his letter to Stubb, your admirer.
Alrighty, so, talk to me, Sister Tahsin.
So, Locke read his book, wrote a letter to him, to Stubb, full of praise, but disagreed with him as far as religious toleration was concerned, and he thought
whoa. Totally?
No, he thought that tolerating the Catholics was a mistake.
So isn't that interesting? So we're going to call those people Christian dissenters.
Who?
The Catholics. All right. Don't forget, Protestantism was that was the Christianity of the English Empire, right? Catholics were considered to be a minority, even though they also were Christian. All right. We're going to call them Christian dissenters. All right. These are the ones who dissented. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, what can be implied about what he did accept as possible toleration? If he did not agree with Stubb about Catholics being tolerated, which means that we shouldn't tolerate them. They're heretics. We should deal with them, etc. Well, were there other religions possibly as well that perhaps he agreed with Stubb with?
Yeah, Islam or Judaism.
Exactly. All right. We can get from this.
Those.
I'm sorry.
Because he presumably studied those.
So we can get from this that yes, that perhaps we'll see. Perhaps that Locke agreed with Stubb that okay, maybe we can tolerate, the Turks, i.e. the Muslims, and the Jews, within our society. We can tolerate them, if you will. All right. Now I want to make something very clear. Please understand this very carefully. The word tolerance is not a positive word.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that.
Don't forget that, all right? Don't forget that. When you talk about toleration, please understand that toleration has a negative connotation. All right? Has a negative connotation. We'll accept you, and then when the moment comes, if we can, not deal with you, we won't deal with you. Basically, that's the idea. Okay?
Within our own understanding of toleration.
Alrighty. Okay.
Stubb also felt that the government should not meddle in an individual's religion, and it was between him and God.
Did Locke agree with that?
He did not explicitly disagree, so yeah, he kind of agreed with him.
Absolutely, he agreed. He agreed. So now we see one point of differing between Stubb and Locke. Yes, we see one point of, agreement and disagreement between these two. Okay, which should not be a surprise with human beings. We're always affected by people's previous readings, whether or not we agree with them or not. Some things we might agree or disagree. That's, with scholarship, obviously. We find this going on all of the time. All right. Okay. Whoops. Keep on reading, sister. Mashallah. In 1671, what happened?
In 1671, the same year that Locke read Pocock's Latin translation, Stubb attempted the first sustained English defense of Islam and its prophet.
Salam. Subhanallah.
Presenting Islam as a more tolerant faith than Christianity, Stubb contrasted it with his own Christian society's intolerance. But his rigorous defense of Islam and critique of English religious persecution proved too inflammatory for publication, and his works circulated only in manuscript form.
Now, just so you understand this carefully, so you have manuscript and you have printed, all right? Excuse me, that which was printed was widely circulated in society. That's how it worked. Manuscript, good luck. All right, like underground work, basically. All righty? Yes, continue, please. So, by the way, Stubb was like he was a troublemaker.
An account of the rise and progress of Mahomedanism,
yes,
with the life of Muhammad and vindication of him and his religion from the calumnies of the Christians drew heavily upon Dr. Pocock's Latin translations of early Islamic history, suggesting that the author of the first English treatise defending Islam was, like Locke, unable or unwilling to use Arabic, or else found it unnecessary. Stubb's intention was to assault the great untruths and the little integrity in Christian histories of Islam, single-handedly challenging a millennium of anti-Islamic Christian polemic.
Polemic is like, arguments, mostly theological arguments. Yes.
Unlike all of his predecessors, he characterized the 7th century Islamic conquest of the Middle East as a stupendous revolution. He postulated that the triumph of Islam could be explained in part by Christianity's being weak, rife with irreligion, impiety, and division into sects, in what was clearly also a comment on circumstances in 17th century England.
Wow, that's crazy. MashaAllah. Stubb was a revolutionary amongst the Christians. That's the impression I get. He caused some trouble, huh? And this guy's a Christian. And he's saying, look, man, we're going to be truthful here, okay? Now, he drew upon the Latin translation of Dr. Pocock. Sometimes something to think about as well, that the government initiated Arabic studies and, of course, Semitic studies, we'll call it, during this time period. It wasn't meant to speak good about Islam per se. It was meant to, of course, we said before, to study the Bible. But of course, if you're going to study Arabic, now you have an opportunity to engage the Islamic sources and everything. But it wasn't meant to speak well of Islam per se. It was meant to find what was wrong with Islam. You follow? Yet what we find from this as well is that there will be people who use their minds and don't just blindly follow. And they say, hold up a second now. This is what we actually see here. Okay? Now, Dr. Pocock, we don't know of there isn't any evidence to show whether or not he spoke highly toward Islam. The default was that, that scholars at the time, Protestants particularly, of course Catholics as we know, didn't speak well about Islam. We talked about that many times before. Okay? So we can assume that Pocock probably was someone who did not speak well about Islam per se. Yet and still, he was busying himself and insisting upon the students learn Arabic so they can engage the sources from the original language and then go from there. So that's really interesting, as you can see. And Mr. Stubb as well looked at the actions of the Christians during this time period, right? And developed, if you will, criticism and critique about his own religion. Let that sink in for a minute. Then we wonder why we have Muslims criticizing our religion. Because of our actions. Not necessarily our theology. Alright? Think about that for a little while. Tell you. Anything else you want to add? Brother Abid? Hi, Tahseen. Amatullah. Tabari. Nigar. Anything? No? Okay. MashaAllah. Let's keep it going, man. This is cool. Continue. But while aiming to correct.
But while aiming to correct certain prevailing distortions, Stubb made several glaring mistakes of his own. He claimed, for instance, that the Prophet traveled to North Africa and Spain during his lifetime and served in Christian armies under a powerful early convert named Abu Bakr.
Who's Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr Siddiq.
Yeah. Companion.
Huh?
Whom Stubb claimed to be his uncle, but was actually his father-in-law. Finally, following one of the more common Christian misrepresentations of Islamic tradition, Stubb insisted that the Prophet wrote the Quran. Stubb praised the Prophet as a political leader, contradicting what he described as the calumnies charged upon him by the Christians. His Muhammad was an extraordinary person of ready wit, penetrating judgment, and undaunted courage, who was equally qualified for actions of war or the arts of peace and civil government. At the same time, Stubb expressed admiration for Islam's emphasis on the oneness of God and its rejection of the Trinity, which he attributed to the influence of Arianism, a Christian heresy. By implication, then, the Prophet Muhammad's religion was not new. He had revived an early, truer form of Christianity in which the Trinity and Jesus' divinity were later corruptions. Clearly, Stubb's support for these unorthodox and unpopular ideas made him a Christian heretic.
Okay, so let's backtrack just a little bit. First of all, Sister Tahseen, you tell me. Talk to me.
So while he was promoting Islam while he was saying that Christianity had some mistakes in their representation of Islam and the Prophet, he did make some of his own mistakes where he thought the Prophet traveled to North Africa and Spain, and he thought Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was a convert, and Stubb claimed him to be his uncle. And
Abu Bakr did accept Islam. That's true. That part is true.
Yeah. And then, the biggest mistake was he insisted that the Prophet wrote the Quran.
Which would suggest what? If the Prophet wrote the Quran, what does that suggest?
It's a human interpretation.
Exactly. It would be a human interpretation, which is subjugated to what? Mistakes and errors. Okay. Keep that in mind, okay? So we have someone who is a non-Muslim who is criticizing his religion, admiring, if you will, another religion, Islam in this case, because of for obvious things and what have you. But yet and still, there were mistakes with regards to belief and this about the Prophet ﷺ writing the Quran, of course. That is something that was passed on by many Christian thinkers at that time period. One of the criticisms of Islam back then was this idea that Muhammad ﷺ was someone who actually wrote this Quran. Alrighty? And so it is distortions, it's this, that, and the third, alright? So there are lessons to be learned from this as well. I'll let you reflect on what possible lessons could be learned from that. I won't give you my thoughts on that. I'll let you think about that some. But Stubb was a Unitarian. He wasn't a Trinitarian. Stubb was a Unitarian, not a Trinitarian. Let's not forget, we talked about that Protestants at that time were two camps primarily. You were either Unitarian or you were Trinitarian. Unitarian was a heresy, Arabic bid'ah. Okay? Okay? So, him, first of all, defending Islam, speaking well of Muhammad ﷺ. In what way was he speaking highly of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? In what way?
So he thought that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was probably a person who revived true Christianity, and that he was possibly a Christian heresy himself, because the concept of Trinity and divinity of Jesus was completely rejected in Islam. So he thought, okay, here's another fellow true Christian who's just reviving what Christianity
Well, you know, that's possible. What we can possibly understand from this, right? That maybe, you know, he was just influenced by Christian thought and etc., you know, from the early Christians, etc. Another thing as well is that we get that Rasul alayhi salam, in the eyes of Stubb, was a just military leader. All right. Hence, being able to part of his the proof of that was the fact that he tolerated other religions. He didn't coerce them into becoming Muslim. That's very interesting. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, very good. MashaAllah. You know, this is interesting. You know what I'm about to say? I'm going to tell you what's interesting. We have the sisters in the front and the brothers in the back. Right? Right? Someone comes and see, look at this. This is. No, it just happened to be like that. It is what it is, okay? Anywho, subhanAllah. All right. Please continue reading, mashallah.
Polygamy and warfare, two aspects of Islam historically denigrated by Christian authors, also found a champion in Stubb. Stubb reminded readers that King David had been a polygamist. Rather than institutionalizing
licentiousness.
Stubb,
licentiousness refers to indecent sexual behavior. Okay.
Stubb argued the Prophet had solved a social problem because, as he asserted strangely, East and South, there are far more women than men in the chapter devoted to the justice of the Mohammedan wars. Stubb refuted as a falsehood the notion that Islam was spread by the sword. At the same time, he noted that many Christian theologians had addressed spreading their own faith by force, a premise the author rejected. Stubb emphasized that the Islamic precedent for the toleration of Christians and Jews came from the Quran, was practiced by the successors of the Prophet during the conquest of the Middle East, and continued to protect the Christians of the Ottoman Empire. The lesson for his readers, toleration for fellow Christians, would promote peaceful coexistence and prevent the sort of civil strife witnessed repeatedly in 17th century England.
All righty. This is so we see another aspect of Stubb's defense of Islam. Like what, Brother Tabari?
What I'm understanding is like he's not looking so much at like Islamic theology, but he's looking at the politics. He's looking at how the politics, how the Islamic politics and the Islamic leaders, how they dealt with politics, examples that his society could benefit from. That's what I'm seeing. So the toleration of Christians because of the 300-year war in Europe, or the practiced by the successors of the Prophet ﷺ. Because he's showing that this is something inherent in Islam, and it's passed down in the political realm, and we can borrow lessons. That's what it seems like to me.
Yes, that's very good. The polity is very true. The social aspect as well, which is he also refuted the idea of polygamy as well. Because one of the things about Christian scholars at that time period was that they hated Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam because they considered him to be, a womanizer basically. Alrighty, and this is something that's just, we just don't do in Christianity. Alrighty, Jesus wasn't like that basically. Okay, Stubb was like, oh, that's just garbage. Basically. All right, proof from his own book, the Bible. King David had a whole bunch of wives. Now, one of the things that I appreciate about something like this, from our religion as well, although this is kind of a tangent, which is this, that when it comes to us differing about this deen, we're supposed to do what? What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to refer to what? The Quran and the Sunnah. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? That's the text. We go from there, right? That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Doing the same thing. Something to think about, all right? Locke, don't forget now. We're talking about John Locke, though. Did John Locke agree with all this? I don't know. I don't know. Noting that Christian, continue reading, please.
Noting that Christians and other religions might peaceably subsist under their protection if they paid the tribute demanded, meaning the annual poll tax called the jizya. Stubb implied that Christians defined as heretics in England might in fact be better treated in the Islamic world.
He goes on and says, continue.
As Muhammad persecuted none for religion who believed one God in the Day of Judgment, so lest of all the Christians who, as we have seen before, enjoyed more of his favors than any of the other religions. That he did not see fit to publish his manuscript may well suggest he knew that King Charles II would have answered such criticism with prison or worse.
Wow. Wow. Go ahead, continue.
Stubb's treatise would remain unpublished during Locke's lifetime, but as a friend and correspondent, Locke may have access to the widely circulated manuscript. In his later work on toleration, Locke also notes the Ottoman Turkish toleration of Christians, but this does not appear to be the origin of his support for the civil rights of Muslims. Still, plagiarized parts of Stubb's manuscript would find their way into the English deist Charles Blount's Oracles of Reason 4 years after Locke's first letter on toleration was published, as part of the connection between deism's remote but unitary God and the God of Islam that was first established in the late 17th century England. A form of this heretical association with Islam would be linked to Locke at the end of his life. The partial appearance of Stubb's treatise in the deist Blount's work may have in turn provoked Humphrey's Prideaux's 1697 attack on the Prophet Muhammad, which was also intended as an indictment of the ideas of English deists. By the end of the 17th century, not only deists, but Unitarians as Socinians who rejected the Trinity came to be known, and Muslims were linked in the public mind, according to James Jacob. More recently, John Marshall has asserted that Islam was central to tolerationist debates in late 17th century England because of the similarities alleged between Islam and anti-Trinitarianism, including both deism and Unitarian thought. Both were heresies in need of extirpation in the eyes of Anglican Protestants like Humphrey Prideaux, who compared them to Islam. By contrast, the English minority who embraced deist and Unitarian viewpoints often represented Islam in a positive light, presenting it as one of three similar pristine monotheisms, its revelations equal to but not surpassing those of the Old and New Testaments. But such relatively positive views of Islam were limited to the extent that the faith mirrored their own heterodox deist and Unitarian Christian-based theologies. In 1682, English Unitarians attempted to meet with the Moroccan ambassador in London to discuss their theological unity. Locke knew about this meeting and wrote an acquaintance for a description of the Muslim ambassador. He would eventually, in his work on toleration, defend both Unitarians and Muslims from persecution. In other ways, the same English Protestants also simultaneously denigrated Islam in order to critique repressive Anglican Christianity, the established faith of the English government.
That's a lot there to take in. Let's kind of go back a little. Thank you very much. All righty. All right. First of all, Mr. Stubb used another evidence drawing from Islamic traditions that during Muslim rule, Jews and Christians, anybody else, were able to practice their religion so long as they did what?
Pay the jizya.
Pay a jizya. All right, that was it. And it wasn't a lot of money, by the way, as people would like to assume. It was not a lot. It was very little, actually. All righty, so they can do what they wish. Just pay the jizya, and you're good to go. All right. In addition to that, so Henry Stubb was like, look, we could do something similar in our particular society instead of persecuting them. Okay, instead of persecuting them, which is very interesting. He goes on and argues that, or whether we see that Mr. Stubb, had he had his book or his treatise published, he probably would have been imprisoned or even killed. That's the depth of the hatred, I guess we could say, and disdainment of how the government viewed anyone that went against this particular way of thought with regards to Christianity. Okay, those are lessons to be learned during our time period today. But anyway, so again, the question at hand is, so where did Locke agree with all this? Did he agree with all this or some of this? All right, that's one of the central questions that we're trying to get at, right? So we also find that Mr. Locke, of course, had some access to it apparently, and he was in some ways influenced by it, as is from the paragraph. Stubbs' treatise will remain unpublished until the end of that, right? We also see that a few years after Locke's first letter on toleration was published, another person named Charles Blount wrote his own thing called Oracles of Reason, where apparently he just basically took ideas of Stubb. A deist at that time was someone who believed in that God is one. It's a deist at that time period. All right, a deist was just like a Unitarian. There were some subtle differences, but nevertheless, they were people who believed in that God, Allah Ta'ala, being one, not three. Okay. In addition to that, we see, which is not a surprise, toward the end of the 17th century, we mentioned Humphrey Prideaux before in the previous class, in his attacks on the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but we also see that this was also a reason why that prompted him to speak ill about not only Islam but also deism as well, or the Socinians. All right, so we have all this going on, all this stuff is going on. We see John Locke being influenced. We see other people getting into the picture, saying what they have to say. And we also see some other people here. We also see as well from this that during this time period, there was political correspondence between the British Empire and the Moroccan government, and John Locke was very interested in knowing more. He had a curiosity about the Muslims, the Mohammedans in that particular region, to try to understand, how they went about engaging with the British government or English government at that time period. So what we get from this, amongst other things, is that we had people having some sort of a positive view about Islam. Fine. Some of it was distorted. Fine. We also see that this, of course, is going to trigger people to refute or write refutations against this as well. All right. We also see as well thus far that the person who is considered to be the principal catalyst of early American thought in some way, shape, or form was influenced by a person who benefited from his teacher's writings. All right, that's something to think about. All right. Views like Prideaux's anti-Islamic. Please continue reading, Tahsin.
Views like Prideaux's anti-Islamic, anti-deist, and anti-Unitarian arguments would prevail among Protestants into the 18th century. Prideaux eventually rose through the Anglican clerical ranks to become Dean of Norwich.
Now, part of the reason why he would, be elevated is because of the fact that he was very much a staunch critic of Islam and any of the heresies in general. I mean, that's the reality during that time period. If you were with the government in the university. And the university was considered to have a high level of respect, obviously. Government agenda during that time period was done politically, but also academically. And so if you were amongst those in the academia that agreed with and were active in promoting and defending the government's religious / political agenda, you were more likely to be favored and, of course, be rewarded for your efforts. Sounds familiar? Go, please.
In contrast, Stubbs' surreptitiously circulated manuscript in defense of Islam would not be published in England until 1911.
Wow.
Thanks to a subscription by a group of Muslims residing in London.
Mm-hmm.
Although Humberto Garcia has emphasized the importance and scope of Stubbs' underground circulation in England.
So Humberto Garcia is a researcher. Just keep that in mind. He's not someone that was during that time period. Mm-hmm.
In England, his views in praise of Islamic toleration did not contribute directly to debates about Muslim rights or citizenship in the Anglo-Atlantic world, having been limited to the reform of English religious and political liberties.
Okay, so Mr. Stubbs's writings focus primarily on reforming, of course, English religion and political liberties. That was it. Okay, that was that was the scope of his writing. It did not discuss the idea of citizenship with respect to Muslims. Should Muslims be citizens in an Anglo-Saxon society? That part Mr. Stubb did not address. It's one thing to be tolerant of a particular religion or members of a religion. All right? It's another to say, okay, do you think they should be members of society? He didn't talk about that. He didn't discuss that. And that discussion actually, or this question mark, that big old question mark, would be one of the biggest things that would take place amongst the writers of the Constitution here in the United States of America. Okay? John Locke didn't talk about it either. Okay? He did not discuss this issue as well. The focus was simply for Mr. Locke, as we'll see, is that these other religions need to be tolerated in our society. As far as citizenship and the like, I'm not going to talk about that. That was the idea. Okay? Locke's long association.
Locke's long association with the seditious Lord Shaftesbury, a founder of the opposition Whig Party and advocate of religious and civil toleration for dissenters, but not Catholics, resulted in suspicion falling on Locke too. Locke never knew that Prideaux, a copy of whose anti-Islamic polemic Locke owned, had spied on him at Oxford in 1681, reporting directly to Charles II's Under-Secretary of State. Locke wrote a pamphlet to aid Shaftesbury's defense, which only increased suspicions about the author. After his exoneration at trial, Shaftesbury fled to Holland in 1682, where he died the next year. In 1683, Shaftesbury's radical Whig associates plotted to assassinate the king and his brother.
Oof.
Although Locke's involvement in this conspiracy is also debated by scholars, his acquaintance with the conspirators put him at risk. He too fled to Holland in 1683, where he remained active in opposition to the government.
Mm-hmm.
By 1685, all associates of the Whig movement in England had been removed from office, imprisoned, or fled the country amid renewed persecution of religious dissenters. Locke's support for the failed insurrection forced him to live in hiding in Holland beginning in 1685, where the rule of the Catholic James II began. It was then that he began to write his first letter on toleration. Locke would travel throughout the Netherlands during his exile, but his idea of religious toleration for Muslims had already been formed in England a quarter century before. He had acquired it from someone with whom he disagreed initially about the toleration of Christian dissenters.
It's Tahsin. Break it down for me. Break it down for me. Let's start with Locke's long association with Lord Shaftesbury. Lord Shaftesbury was a founder of the Whig Party. We talked about the Whig Party before, did we not? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. What did we say about the Whig Party? What's so special about them? What were some of the characteristics of the Whig Party that made them so interesting? Yes.
Unitarian type, I think.
Huh?
They were Unitarians?
They were possibly Unitarian. Possibly, yes. Huh? Something else.
They were against their ideas were against Islam and the Pope, who they thought was the epitome of tyranny. And they had 5 ideologies.
What were they? Refresh my memory.
Rick's ideologies. Individual rights. And
I'm sorry?
Individual rights and freedom of speech and religion.
Individual rights and?
Freedom of speech and...
Yes, individual rights. Freedom of rights. Freedom of speech. Freedom of religion. Huh? Yes?
Freedom of press.
Freedom of press. Huh?
Free worship.
Oh, and free worship. That went against the established government back then. These people were, they were considered to be a problem. Yes.
Is that the same Whig Party here?
Again?
Is that the same Whig Party that was here?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yes. You've seen the connection a little bit here, all right? Okay. So we got this guy, Lord Shaftesbury. Now, Mr. Locke was guilty by association. He was guilty, by association. He's a troublemaker, specifically in the religious and the political area of Britain, of England. And ironically, Prideaux was spying on this dude, man. Prideaux was spying on Locke in Oxford. That's crazy. You see that? See the parentheses? It says Locke never knew that Prideaux had spied on him at Oxford and directly reported to Charles II, or Charles II's Under-Secretary of the State. Wow. So Locke is like, benefiting from Mr. Stubb and his thoughts, etc., and also Lord Shaftesbury. You understand? And he's agreeing with some of this stuff here. And Prideaux, who is a staunch opponent to the ideas of Stubb, is spying on him and reporting back to the government about, hey, you need to watch out for this guy. Wow. Man, that's crazy. Woo. Again, we're building Mr. Locke. Who's Mr. Locke? That's what we're doing right now, right? Because Mr. Locke, of course, had some influence later on with the so-called authors of the Constitution. That's all right? So, Shaftesbury was on trial. He was free, or whatever charges that were levied upon him. Then he flew to Holland. Why did he go to Holland?
Exile.
Why did he go to Holland? Why Holland?
Holland, you could do whatever you want.
Exactly. Holland was, ironically, during that time period, the place where you can freely practice whatever religion you want. I said ironically, because that's changed now. They're one of the greatest, one of the largest countries that practices Islamophobia. Wow. But this is kind of nuts now. Shaftesbury wanted to assassinate the king at that time and his brother. Now that's a problem.
In Holland, or where's the king?
Nah.
This is in England.
So we got here. In 16, after his exoneration of trial, Shaftesbury fled to Holland in 1682, where he died the next year. In 1683, Shaftesbury Whig associates. Shaftesbury dead now. However, the Whig Party, they still there in Britain, in England. All right, they're like, you know what? We need to kill. We're gonna take out the king. We need to kill him and his brother. They are a problem. Yeah, that's what you call what? Religious extremism. All right. SubhanAllah, extremism breeds extremism. Right? We got here a nice little example right here. It's so funny how people like to talk about ISIS. You Muslims, This is what you did. You made ISIS. Hold up, man. Hold up. Stop. Come in. Let's talk about your history, shall we? Now, in Britain, my friend, we have this Whig Party. The Whig Party, by the way, was like the party that was part of the colonists and everything. By the way, did you know they wanted to kill the king at that time in Britain? And his brother? Not just the king? So is that also like a religious terrorism? You see that? See, Muslims get all upset. They get mad and they start getting all sad. What's wrong with our religion? Stop saying that, all right? Look at the history, see what's going on here.
I had a question.
Yes.
So in the slide before,
Page, actually, yeah.
Page.
Yeah.
So Shaftesbury was exonerated at trial. Why did he have to flee then?
Because, sister, if you are promoting a heresy, a religious heresy, and remember now, you're promoting, it's not like, you got a manuscript form, a couple of people reading on the underground. This is like, he's promoting this in the public. Like, people know about this guy, okay? He's being told, listen, you need to, I suspect he was probably told, tone it down, change your position or something of that nature. He probably refused to tone down his rhetoric. He probably got arrested for his heresy, all right? He didn't get arrested for plotting to kill because that happened after his death, okay? Chances are he probably was put to trial for his promotion of a heresy that was, that was considered a problem in that society.
But he gets exonerated.
Yeah, so how did he get exonerated? I don't know the answer to that question. What were
They could have easily found him, okay, you're guilty and we're going to put you in prison.
Sure, that's right. That's very true. So what were the things that got him exonerated? Allah alam. I don't know. But it's very interesting nevertheless, right? So he got exonerated. Maybe some things within the Constitution. I don't know what it was that said, okay, he's the charges will be dropped, but he couldn't stay in England. Well, what was he going to do, right? If he got charged with probably something that's considered a heresy, and even if he got exonerated, is it feasible for him to actually live in a place where honestly he's still holding on to those principles that he will continue to even live there at that time period? Probably not. Okay. And this is something that happens all the time with people, right? Where their homeland is just a place where, doesn't fit with my ideals and I have to leave. So he left and he died somewhere where he was welcomed. Or he was welcomed and eventually he died. But unfortunately, here's the thing that's very interesting. His Whig Party, their idea of rebuffing the religious extremism in their eyes required or prompted them in their minds to be violent toward the political body at that time period, right? So Mr. Locke was also, as I mentioned earlier, was guilty by association. He knew Shaftesbury, all right? He signed up. He seemed to be on board with the Whig Party, okay? He debated scholars about tolerance and the like. He was also persona non grata. He had to leave too, so he left. He went to Holland himself, and that's where he began writing his things on tolerance in religion and the like.
Is that where he eventually settled and died? Or?
Yes. Yeah, he didn't die in England. He died in the Netherlands. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll stop here. Are there any questions? Huh? No, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Okay, Rahman, I will be uploading, inshallah, this is the book right here, Thomas Jefferson's Quran. Okay, I'll upload the EPUB version as well. Please finish reading the rest of the section and read the next chapter, chapter 3. All right, alrighty. So we can have a discussion about this and what I want to hear. What we have some, hopefully some fruitful discourse on it, inshallah ta'ala. All right. Thank you for your time.
Shukran.
Allah bless you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك الحمد لله رب العالمين. All right. Oh, yes, chapter. Finish reading this chapter, and also read chapter 3.
What chapter is this?
This is chapter. Wait a minute. That's a great question. Yeah, chapter 2. Yes, we're finishing chapter 2. All right, finish up chapter 2 and read all of chapter 3. Inshallah. I will upload this immediately for you, inshallah, if you do not wish to purchase the book. Okay, you'll have it on digital. Here. Do it right now. Let's see. Canvas. Login. Put it right here. Courses. Hey, where's my thing here? I only see seminary. I do other than seminary.
I don't think
Under
we
courses,
use,
maybe?
Yeah, try courses.
we don't use Canvas.
You know, what do you use?
Some
I forgot what you use.
the online.
What's that for?
Assalamualaikum.
Is Sheikh Jibril available?
Yes, I'm here.
He's here.
I want to tell, oh,
Hold on a second, come to the phone. Hold on a second. There you are. Assalamu alaikum. Yes. I'll take care of it, inshallah. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I got you. Inshallah.
It's good. Their lack of toleration for the Catholics was because they moved, they were tyrannical and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because so it's very hypocritical. You know, it says it in the new textbooks, the new world history textbooks for ninth grade, and I pointed it out to students. I said, you know, they talk about toleration, but not for Catholics.
That's right.
Because the Anglican Church is obviously, like you said, was the centers, or you know.
Yeah.
And from them stem all the the Puritans and the
That's right.
Pilgrims,
Absolutely.
and the Baptists,
There you
and all
go.
that kind of stuff.
There you
all
go.
these little branches.
That's right. There you go. That's right. Yeah.
Right now, I'm thinking about the French Revolution.
Also,
Because I tell the kids, equate radical things with extremism.
That's
I
nice.
mentioned ISIS and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Like, you know how Muslims are made that way. They said that these were radicals, these were extremists, right? And because, and I try to kind of give them some ideas, but I know about this.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So we have to. And it's good that you're doing that, because we have to really we got to deconstruct this whole thing of, that Islam in our day and time has to be equated with this thing called, intolerance, whatever words are being floated out, the extremism, etc. When we're seeing, just before this country, we see previous the British Empire and the children of that promoting that. So let's be fair here now. All right, let's be fair. In fact,
Through trial and error, right? Stuff and log.
Yeah, I mean, that's
started
amazing.
figuring out that
right.
And like you said, that toleration was just putting up with people, not really wanting to coexist. exist.
Exactly, and I would even argue that, you know, which was not mentioned by the author, but I'll say it like this. So, you know, part of the motivation, and I think we mentioned last class, some people who also encourage tolerance, they looked at it as an opportunity to give them da'wah. Okay. But there's a fundamental difference, if you will. The government just was not trying to hear about somebody else's religion being in their society. At least in Islamic empires, while it was still an effort to give these people da'wah, if they chose not to, fine. Okay, you can still live in your peace, and you can still do what you want to do. In fact, you know, there are things where we can maybe even intermarry. Okay, although it wasn't encouraged, it was still there. That wasn't the case for this what we see here.
They had no framework for it.
Absolutely. You see, and that's something that we have to kind of keep. We got to keep that in our minds. That this is how, you know, subhanAllah. The more you think about it, you link it to Islam and how it works and everything, you're like, whoa.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
to
man.
have that framework of coexistence,
That's
if
it.
you will, and all of that.
So I mean, why are we poo-pooing on Islam, man?
That's part of the agenda right now.
You see?
Yeah.
You see?
I don't know if you ever heard of Amir Abdul Malik Ali. He's basically, I think, was part of the Sabakum movement with Imam Hussein. He would say, it's called Zionist every year that they had Zionism Awareness Week or Anti-Zionist Week. You can take your TVs, your movies, and radio, and you can portray us as demons, as savages, as terrorists, all you want, but we're not stopping to speak the truth. And he would liken it to the people of Holy Land. And then tell the kids, you know, all those words that he used, right? It's belittling people. It's dehumanizing people, right? Which is what people do whenever they want to commit genocides, right? But Rwanda, it was referring to one of the tribes as cockroaches. You know, to Hitler's time, right, with the disabled, and, you know, the Jews. So this has been done over and over and over again.
That's right. That's right.
This time period, Charles II, after him was obviously the Mary Orange, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's like it's a glorious revolution.
That's right.
It's so peaceful. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, man.
He was a Catholic.
Yeah.
And his
See?
daughter was a Protestant.
See?
Protestant or?
Protestant.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, Protestant. You were either Catholic or Protestant. Underneath that, what type of Protestant? You know, as you had a du jour. Yeah, man. So, yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you're picking this up and you're seeing this.
I'm kind of late in the game.
Yeah. No. This is good, man. This is good. No, your contribution is very good.
This is crucial to what I teach.
Absolutely.
It's crucial.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's why I'm glad that, you know, the history teachers here at IOK, like yourself, alhamdulillah. I think there's a couple of sisters here as well that may be listening online. They are also trying to, you know, get stuff as well to teach their students, because we really I also think, of course, like Sister Tahseen, husband Abid, you know, of course they're hopefully benefiting as well, but since we're so concerned about our youth and everything, this is critical. They got to understand this stuff, because you know, it's getting more intense every year.
I wish you would have in the future, if you had some time, or anytime you get a chance to review our books, the new ones that we just got.
Sure.
You know, something Lowen, James Lowen wrote a whole thing about lies my teacher told me. To see, like, I guess if these books are better, especially when it comes to, like, you know, Islam and Muslims and doing justice. Like, I've seen some subtle improvements. The old books 12 years ago, like, you know, the first unit would be the sources of the democratic tradition, and the first chapter would be the Judeo-Christian, Greco-Roman tradition. Nothing about Islam.
Wow.
And I supplemented it with an article from Juma magazine, which just was seen at the beginning of the year. Something Graham, and he wrote he was basically a high school teacher who, around 9/11, and realized, wait a minute, as he started studying Islam, he came across all these things and realized that, hey, you know, the true progenitors of Europe's enlightenment, and this and that and the other, and so infusing the fact that Islam had a lot to do with all of this, even though the books, you don't give it credit, the newer books that just came out this past year,
Yes.
2018, so about a year ago,
Yes.
which were under review. One of our teachers was reviewing like the middle school version of it.
MashaAllah.
Do give Islam some
Yeah.
credit, as we were going through some of that stuff, but so it's better than obviously what existed before, but I'm sure there's a lot more work to do.
I see.
Like
Well,
what you just mentioned to me is a revelation.
alhamdulillah.
We teach them about law and stuff, but I had no idea about stuff and all that.
Alhamdulillah.
So,
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Very good. MashaAllah. It's good.
I never thought I would enjoy
history.
history of Islam in America. Like no topic for me. Ever since I started TAing with Brother Abdurrahman, I got into history.
And I haven't been the
MashaAllah.
most engaging teacher.
Oh no, I've learned so much in his class. That's why I thought, okay, this would be a very good class to complement that class. So
MashaAllah.
it's going very well.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm learning a lot.
Alhamdulillah.
You
It's good.
scared me there for a minute when you reacted. You missed the beginning.
Oh yeah, you missed the beginning.
Oh my god.
You heard it online?
You
Well,
saw that?
I was online, but I'm not sure which part. I mean, I was online
When
from
he
11
reacted to
15.
what I said, he was like, what was the question? The question was...
So the
Because you had another sister reading, and I heard it out loud.
No, it was way before
it was
that.
before we started. So the question at hand was, Sister Tahsin had asked me my position.
On the
What
two
we were
political-
talking about first. This the Sheikh Ahmed al-Kurdi, in his class. Sister Nigar had mentioned when I said this is the book, inshallah, we're going to be reading as part of our whole class. There'll be other books, inshallah. So she commented that Sheikh Ahmed mentioned that the version or edition that Thomas Jefferson has of the Quran is a Qadiani in the Library of Congress. And I have no reason to not accept that. I mean, Sheikh Ahmed, mashallah, does his research. And then we talked about who are the Qadianis, who are the Ahmadiyya. And we talked about the Green Book, the movie The Green Book. All right, and Marshallah, what's the name again? I forgot it. Ali, Marshallah Ali or something like that. Marshanda Ali or something. Anyway, so he won recently an Academy Award for that movie. And of course, people were, as Muslims, we're going to, because he's a Muslim, and everybody's like, yeah, and this, that, and the third. But he's Ahmadi.
Mahershala Ali.
Mahashara, Mahashala Ali.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali.
So people are celebrating, organizations are celebrating this. Yeah, all right, but he's Ahmadi. Okay. And then we got on the topic of the fact that, we Muslims, we have this tendency to, every time someone has made it, we just want to put them, splatter that person everywhere.
You're on a pedestal.
All right, and we celebrate it, this, that, and the third. I said, for example, the Egyptian who won the Academy Award is something Malik. Rami Malik is a Coptic. He's not even Muslim.
But the name.
So why are we celebrating this? Why are we happy about this? This is so. Then Sister Tahsina asked me, so what's your position on Ilhan Omar and Rashid Talib? And I asked her, what is your position? She wanted to hear my position. I wanted to hear her position.
It went back and forth. It went back and forth.
So she told me her position. And I was just shocked, right? And and then her husband. I asked her husband, "So what do you think?" Right?
He's the one who taught me that thinking.
And so he said, "Well, So she said, "This is Tahsin. Well, he agrees with me." And he said, "Yeah, I do agree with her." And then they both said that their positions run afoul to Islam and what have you. I didn't say anything while they were talking and giving an explanation. I came across something and I read something to them, and I read to them about the fact. I said, when I'm reading this, I want you to take away Afro-American, put in Muslim instead. And I went on to talk to them about the fact that Malcolm X, rahimahullah, gave an opening speech laying out the mission and vision of his Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU, which was founded after his Hajj, not before. I did that purposely. So in it, it indicates that they want to, or the organization sought to register Afro Americans, but not Democrat nor Republican, rather independent. Because he said both parties have betrayed the Afro American. And then I said, and they didn't know who it was and everything. I said, this is by Malcolm X, rahimahullah, da 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 da. And then I asked Tahsin, do you know my answer now, as far as my position? So there you go. So unfortunately, with that, we continuously. Oh yeah, one other comment that we have to really get past this this reaction to colonialism. We keep reacting to colonialism. All right. Yes, we are a religious minority, okay, but why do we sometimes overly celebrate people who actually, perhaps do not really reflect the actual Islam that the revelation and Allah Ta'ala wanted us to apply? Okay? This is something we have to get past.
Colonial mentality, superiority, inferiority complex.
Exactly. We made it! Yeah, we made it! Yeah, you see? We made it! Well, in what way did we make it? Please tell me how. And
look at our history. You can see how much we actually made it.
Yeah, man. Come on now. And then, let me tell you something else, too. When I think about the Muslim minorities in Mecca and the stuff they had to go through, the violence, the total disrespect that they had to go through, to the point where they had to leave Mecca to go to other parts of the world just so they can live. Okay? Really, but I ask you really honestly, okay? Are we going through what they're going through? Is someone telling us, someone making you, for example, say, look, take that off. Look, get rid of that. Are we at that point? We're not at that point. This is called self-inflicted wounds, man. We're doing this to ourselves quite often. At least back then, they had a greater sense of working together, had a greater sense of teaching each other and encouraging each other to understand what Iman was, and projecting it, being patient, etc., etc., etc. Even the early days of Medina as well. They had it rough, man. They had it rough. A lot of us, man, mashallah, alhamdulillah. And we still can't, we still got to have fundraisers as to why this particular institute, for example, would like to have your financial support. Really? That's where we at? We still at that point? Come on, man. But we have no problem, as Sister Tahsin pointed out, we have no problem celebrating people because they're Palestinian or because it is, because of that, and their representation of Islam. What is that? Please tell me, what is that? So you got one that doesn't wear anything of a hijab whatsoever, and who has used profane language. All right. They even made a pizza. Now there's a pizza called ITMF or something. Yeah, impeach that. You know what? Yeah. Because of what she said, and she's happy about that, and thank you for your support, and da 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 and da da. I'm going, Bismillah, what is that? All right.
And we're supposed to be proud of that.
And Sister Tahsin made a nice point about the fact the other sister, may Allah guide them, that when she made her quote unquote anti-Semitic comments and what have you, she got shut down by her own party. They told her, you better shut up. You better be quiet up in here. Oh no, you toe the line. So what does that say? Right? You read their websites, they support things that that run afoul with the Islamic ethical system. And we as Muslims, as was mentioned by many scholars here and other places, that we should not be ashamed nor afraid to state our position. That does not make us. There isn't a certain phobia that we have attributed to that. We just look at it a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's looking at it with a critical eye. There's a man that's in prison, still in prison, H. Brown. Jamil Al-Amin.
Yes.
And one time he was from jail. He was talking about. He said, "What way to make a fool of a man to give him a vote and tell him that he's free when he has to choose between two parties, the
That's
Democratic
right.
and Republican Party."
That's right.
I mean, it's set up in a way where, you feel like you're enfranchised, but really, in many ways, you're disenfranchised.
Absolutely
but it's such
correct.
a very complicated way to break it all down.
Yes.
From the precincts and the districting and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
If you really analyze, I've never had the chance to, but I just have little pieces here and
I'm
there.
the same way.
Heard,
Yeah,
right?
I'm the same way.
If you really kind of break it down, you realize how what a game it is.
And the agenda is set.
And
You
the agenda.
can't go away from the agenda. It's set, and you better follow
Indeed.
it or,
Indeed.
or
And,
not.
and this you two touch upon something that I've been saying for some time as well to other people, is that we Muslims we need to, if we're going to get involved in politics, you need to really be politically literate about these things, because just diving in is a mistake. It is very much misguided, and a misguided act is going to lead to misguidance, and this is the reality. But there are certain things that we could definitely do, like police brutality. That's something that everybody can be on board with. All right. What's wrong with that? Or poverty. Everybody can get on board with that. No one likes poverty. I'm sorry, even if most people would tell you, I do not like the fact I get off the highway and I see somebody with a sign talking about, I need a job. And we can get on board with stuff like that. So there are things that we could expend our energies doing if we choose to do so. But as I also was telling people, we talked about this as a discussion before we started, that we as Muslims are slowly being divided into two major camps.
That's right, I heard you talk about
You heard that part, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so you got the rest of it.
What exactly what happened to the Jews?
Jews.
Yeah.
And the Christians are going through the same thing. And something was ironic is that if we were to have an interfaith discussion, as people like to promote this, right? And we said, okay, who in here is concerned about secularistic thought in their religion? Not every Jew falls or agrees with the secularistic thought. Not every Christian agrees with that. Okay. Well, same thing for Muslims. Some of us don't accept that. You see? So it's an issue that actually, if you are, against secularism and what it can, what it does with respect to the traditions that we have, it's a really major concern. There's a thing called nuns, N-O-N-E-S. You've heard about these, right? The nuns, not the N-U-N. No, the nuns, the N-U-N, the ones who wear the Catholic nuns. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the N-O-N-E-S. These are the people that no longer affiliate with any religion. They're not atheists. No, not atheists. These are people that take a little bit of everything.
Agnostics?
Maybe agnostic. All right, maybe. All right. So, for example, Catholic Hindu. Or Jewish atheist Buddhist. These exist. Right? These exist.
Might as well.
These exist. All right.
It's like choosing the soda.
Like choosing a soda.
Mix them all up.
And their line of thinking goes something like this: that I don't want to be identified with one. That word identity again. I don't want to be identified with one religious tradition. I want to be spiritual, but I don't want to be identified with one religion. I see us taking benefit from all religions, etc. That's where we are now. Okay? So I'm telling you, man.
Actually, we're already seeing the division of Muslims into so-called conservative versus progressive. They're called progressive.
But even with those labels, I reject these labels as well.
Absolutely.
I absolutely
So
reject them.
Everybody was posting all these Facebook
Absolutely.
cartoons. how a progressive will talk to a, you know.
Ah.
Yeah. So you already see that. I mean, I see it very much so in the society here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started noticing it, to be honest with you, back in 2004 when I first graduated from university. Going back to what you were saying about the Ahmadiyya Qadiani people. In my days at UCI was between 99 and 2004. So roughly maybe around 2002. That was the year that I met Mustafa Omar. He was my roommate there at UCI.
MashaAllah.
The welcome week, which is when all the clubs have their